They just picked up Andrew Chafin.
Is it Chafin or Chafin?
Chafin.
Chafin?
So bad today.
He's Chafin?
Left-hander, trade with the Diamondbacks. Let's see what we're getting out of this deal. It's not.
I just want to see the prospects.
They don't really tell you that all the time. They'll just say 3
and
prospects.
And that's sloppy reporting. Because
people don't think of them. You even poo-pooed these prospects a couple of days ago.
Because those guys were like 16 and 17 years old. Those guys are still like in their academies.
Were those the teenagers from Miami that they found outside?
I want to see their birth certificates because maybe these guys shouldn't be out of their parents' reach. Anyway,
it's true.
Philly's got Michael Lorenzen. I know him from the Reds. Good guy. Good, solid middle of the rotation guy. He's an innings eater. He's a good dude. I want to see who the Tigers got back.
Yeah, I do too. Well, they were waiting because Lorenzen and Rodriguez still has moved, and they're thinking.
I think Dylan Cease will go. I think Eduardo Rodriguez will be the next to go from the Tigers. Yep. I don't think Tim Anderson's going to go, although I don't know why. I really think that he could help a lot. I honestly, Tim Anderson fits into the Red Sox better than any team I think out there.
I agree
because that guy's a big time player.
Even if you don't want to pay him, the rental portion
exactly.
Is
worth I'm telling you what, you'd want to pay him because he's a big game performer. He loves to be in the spotlight, and Boston needs something to. There's no Xander Bogaerts. Rafael Devers is a great kid, but he's not, doesn't really speak English. He's not going to sit there and be like Xander Bogaerts or Mookie Betts or even Benintendi. I like that guy. He was a happy player. And, it's a shame that all of these players that you had a few years ago are now no longer there that helped you win a championship. But I think that Tim Anderson is still young enough to have good 5 years in not just a Red Sox, in any uniform outside of Chicago. But obviously Chicago thinks highly enough of him. It's not so much you're not trading the guy, it's that you want so much in return. You want 3 prospects, 4 prospects, and some teams are balking at that, going, you know what, I'll pick them up off free agency.
It sounds like the White Sox. Right. I mean, you teach me about the sale deal all the time for the White Sox. I want
control, number one. If I could control contracts, if I still got, like this kid that just came from the Rockies or some of these other players from the Cardinals, if you have 2-3 years left on that deal, that's a win for you. I can already budget that into next year and the year after. I know what I'm spending on that guy. That's one less thing that I got to worry about. So when Chris Sale came this way from Chicago, I think he had 2 years of $13 million, and his last year was $15 million. A bargain for what you got out of there. Now the extension, that's more of I'm doing that for the fan base, and we love the guy and stuff like that. But he's often hurt now, and that's what happens when the guy starts to decline. You want to get guys that are on their way up, not their way down. And you're certainly not going to give up top prospects for a guy who's on the way down.
Luis Roberts Jr., Lou Bob.
I like that dude, man.
He's on the list as well as far as a shopping spree or a fire sale from the Chicago White Sox. But I think you're right. I didn't even think about that as far as the return in this particular franchise and what they're trying to get for those monsters. And they are. I think they're game changers for sure.
Knowing what I know about a lot of the older GMs, they want to win the deal because that's how they stay employed. If I trade like a Dylan Cease, who was up for the Cy Young Award last year, the year before, he's been really, really solid. Even when guys are having down years, you still want to explain yourself to your boss and say like, hey, listen, I got you 3 prospects in return for this guy. One of them's in AAA right now. So you always have to, basically tell them or show them that I got you some in return on your investment. Remember, they've invested in some of these guys too. You're still working on Kopech and Moncada as part of that deal with, Chris Sale back on the White Sox. So, Gleyber Torres, who was a return for somebody years ago that Brian Cashman. So Brian Cashman could, talk to Hal Steinbrenner and go, listen, there's still guys that I traded 5 years ago for, and they're still in the organization. That's the way these guys stay employed.
I have breaking news, and it's breaking in a couple of different ways. Breaking as in it's fresh, and breaking as in it's a kneecap. Bo Bichette suffers significant structural damage. This is according to Ben Nicholson-Smith of Sportsnet. He talked to manager John Schneider about this in a quote. There is no significant structural damage. Sorry, that's a big part of that. But it is a knee injury. Not out for the season. They're not ruling out an IL stent. They just don't know how long. They don't know a timetable. However, the ACL, LCL, and PCL look intact for Bo Bichette.
That's a great thing.
So they just got Paul DeJong.
Paul DeJong. Listen, he's a
Cardinals.
very good player, and he's had some good years with the Cardinals. And obviously, if you didn't give up too much for him, it's just like Whitfield that you got, from the Royals. Getting some of these really good players and getting Matt Chapman, the Gold Glover from the A's a few years ago.
Whit Merrifield.
As long as you're not giving up too much, you actually have surrounded yourself with some really good ball players. Now, it's up to the coaching staff to get the most out of them. But I honestly think the Blue Jays have done a really nice job in the last few years with free agency and also some of the trade deadline things that they've done.
I really like the Jordan Hicks pickup. I mean, it feels like the Cardinals and the Blue Jays and the two bird teams on the phone with each other.
Another side of this: the Yankees didn't get him. The Rays didn't get him. The Orioles didn't get him. The Orioles were talking about Verlander.
Yeah.
So I'll go back and show my age a little bit, but 25 years ago, the Yankees blocked the Red Sox from getting Jose Canseco, and he didn't play a whole lot for the Yankees, but they got him because they didn't want him to go to a contender, and that's what a lot of these teams think is.
Am surprised that the Padres made a move. And I know it's Hill and G-Man Choi. I'm a fan of both of those guys, but just where they are in their neighborhood of the Los Angeles Dodgers, so the Diamondbacks in there as well. Like, that's a tough place to be, and they're 5 games out of the wild card. Now, they've got so much money wrapped up in that lineup and even in their starting rotation. It looks on paper, once again, for this team that they could potentially do it. But just where they are versus the rest of the world. And I agree with Dom as well. If this third wild card is not a thing, then I don't think the Padres are in this mode. But for them to go get Rich Hill, for them to go get G-Man Choi, they're going to have to do something in the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks to really make it convincing. But that lineup, again, on paper, looks like it could play.
I'm just trying to go back to when Ergueth Urbina was traded to the Marlins in 2003. You already had Braden Looper was your closer. So you bring in another closer with Urbina, and he added 6 saves down the stretch. Together, they were able to defeat the Yankees in the 2003 World Series. And everybody thought that was going to be Roger Clemens' last, season, and I was actually covering that for the network that I was working for back in the day. But just think about that. A lot of these teams are trying to add a second or third closer, add somebody that is a bridge at the end of games, that if you struggle on the stretch in September or in October, you've got extra ammunition. And, a lot of these guys, the Brad Hands and a lot of these other guys, this Chafin or whatever his name is, a lot of these guys you're going to see bolster these bullpens and starting rotations. I always thought it was going to be a lot more pitching. I did think some of these bigger name bats would go, but when the asking price is so high, it's stupid for you to lose this trade, especially if it's a rental. If it's a guy that's going free agent at the end of the year, you're renting him for 2 months and 60 games. Your job's on the line next year if that guy walks on you and you gave up 3 prospects for him.
Are you surprised at the Rangers this year? I mean, it's not just this money.
Amazed.
Buku bucks.
Yeah.
You could go back to the Dodger that they paid, Seager. Go back to that deal, or even before that deal. Like, they've been spending money like they're on their last death.
No, it's not just him. It was Simeon. And then they went out and got DeGrom. Then you went out and get Eovaldi. I mean, you've done so much work in the last couple of years financially, way better than the Padres. Your spending has been, arguably way better. The trade for Aroldis Chapman, right at the right time. His stock was going back up.
How about that? Yeah.
Nobody was really thinking a month ago that Kansas City Royals would give this guy up. Probably gave up guys that they've picked up, they've done a fantastic job with it. And, but here's the thing. Chris Young, want to say he's a Princeton grad, could be Dartmouth. He's an Ivy League kind of guy.
Okay.
Very, very smart, former major league pitcher. They put that guy in charge of getting them back to the top. And I think he's done a remarkable job because he, even the Bruce Bochy hire, not bringing in the wrong guy, bringing in the right guy that was a fit for the mixture of guys that you're bringing in. And, everything right now, and the playoffs haven't started yet, looking really good for the Texas Rangers.
I mean, just rattling it off, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, who's on the IL right now, Garcia, by the way, just developing him, finding him.
Adolis Garcia is fantastic. The fact you're able to get this Cuban kid from the St. Louis Cardinals, But
then, Evaldi, Scherzer, throw Jordan Montgomery in the mix from the Cardinals as well that just came over. Chapman, who you just said.
Yep.
Developing Will Smith as a closer. It has been done in a way where, they've spent money, but also they've went out and they've done some scouting. If you don't know about Travis Jankowski yet, you might get to know this guy because he's going to have significant at-bats. Batting .309, by the way. There's just the Rangers right now. If you have put blinders on and haven't thought about them being a contender, take them off because they are definitely in the mix in the AL where all the good teams are, I'd say. But I think the Rangers, on paper, like the Padres, look very tough to beat.
Evaldi blows my mind, though. 11-3. 8 home runs in 123 innings.
He had a great year last year.
He
was serviceable before that.
Rock solid. I still go back to their championship year. It was a loss to the Dodgers in the World Series that he pitched, 9 innings in relief. And I'll never forget that. And to have you not think that was part of that championship trophy, one of those flags on there, and not keep that guy around and keep some of the other guys that you kept around. That I shake my head at that. Who in this room said, let's not re-sign this dude for $85 million? That would have been a bargain, an absolute bargain. And I don't know what was said to his agent. So his agent probably relayed whatever was said negatively about him. And he's probably like, listen, they may have offered $100 million. I'll take 85 to go to the Rangers. I don't know how it went down, but a lot of times, when Albert Pujols left the negotiations with the Cardinals, it was because his wife said we were so offended by their first offer and what was said about Albert. Had nothing to do with the financial offer itself. It was just the things that were said. That's why. I remember Cliff Lee when he signed with the Phillies. He was like, listen, some of the negotiations with these other teams and the things that were said, I wanted to go somewhere else. I'll go back to Greg Maddux. Greg Maddux took less money to go to the Braves because he didn't want to go to the Yankees. So, it's just some of these people don't realize that a lot of this stuff either gets back through the team, the players, or it goes through the agents back to them. And that's why it's not even financially why you may have lost somebody.
Red Sox have done zip. I've never seen a team in the trade deadline more in limbo of do they stay, do they go, than the Boston Red Sox. And right now, Paxton, still your number one. Whitlock's going to come back off an IL here soon. You still got Bayo, Cutter Crawford, Nick Pivetta to deal with in the back end of that rotation. Are you happy as a Red Sox fan today?
No.
Are you sad as a Red Sox fan today?
No, I'm happy because we're playing better than expected for what we are throwing out there on the field. But we could add something. When your main starter here 100 games into the season has 7 wins in Bayo, and he's probably your 3rd or 4th starter in the rotation, but now he's looking like behind Paxton and Ace, and obviously the injury to Tanner Houck hitting him in the face. Yeah. He's one of your 1 or 2 guys.
Yeah.
He's coming back. Chris Sale's another guy. You can't control injuries, but for my money, listen, they're going to have a lot of depth next year. So you have to add a couple of bats and a couple of defenders. That's where you should be looking right now, which is why I would be on the phone with the guys with the White Sox and be trying to finagle Tim Anderson. And if I can't, I'm on the phone with the A's and who's your best prospect? Who's your best shortstop? Some of these teams that might be willing to move pieces, financially. How can I get my hands on this guy? Maybe you just re-up the guy, and you have control over him for the next 3 years, and it's $60 million that you just gave an extension to somebody. These are the kinds of things that your scouting and development department have to be digging up right now and handing this piece of paper to the GM in your meetings and trying to pick up right now for the Red Sox. So even if you don't think you're going to win in the playoffs this year or even go deep in the playoffs this year, you have to already be retooling for next year because of some of the mistakes you made last year.
I'm surprised Adam Duvall hasn't gotten moved from the Boston Red Sox in that conversation. I know people are after him, and that's why I'm surprised. You got Duran that you've been throwing at center field, and he's been pretty much an everyday kind of guy for the Boston Red Sox.
You control him for 6 years. You ain't moving him.
Duvall is 34 years old, and he's having a pretty good season.
Coming off that Braves championship team.
And like Dib said, there's a lot of people that are interested in him, and just him and Paxton to me.
Whatever you're going to get in return for him is not going to be that great. But that's not the detractor. You could probably get some lower level, prospects for him. I would pull the trigger on it in a second.
I would too, just because you got the guy.
I just don't trade Turner. I try to get Turner back here at least one more year. I know he's older. I think he loves playing with the Red Sox. I think he's great.
He's great for Devers.
Yeah, but I think he's great for that locker room.
Yeah.
And as like Alex Cora, he's like his field general when he's on the field. So I could stick him at first. I could stick him at second. He could play third. I mean, DH. I love that leprechaun. He's unbelievable.
I think Duvall's a little bit like that as well, especially with the young guys in the outfield. When he's gone, things happen out there. Crazy things happen. A lot of sun gets in the eyes out there. But yeah, Red Sox are just fascinating right now. Just very fascinating, where they are ahead of schedule, like you said, in the win-loss column. They're 6 above 500 right now. They're above the New York Yankees. They're still in the mix for the wild card. They could catch the Toronto Blue Jays. Heck, they could really catch everybody, depending on what could happen. But that starting rotation, man, is shaky. It's like a jalopy that's the wheels are barely holding on, and it's about to fall apart, and it's just a matter of time. So for what their future in the next 60 days looks like does not look promising, even though that they're there. And like you're saying, if you're not going to get there in the next 60 days with that jalopy, if you're not going to improve that, then what are you doing for 2024?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, I see what the Mets are doing. The Mets are going to spend.
Right.
They're going to go into free agency with kind of a cleaner slate. They don't want to have to re-sign guys. They played that Russian roulette before Cohen got the team with Michael Conforto. But at the same time, there's going to be some good enough prospects out there. To make some offseason trades. There's nothing to say in the offseason you can't also wheel and deal some of these guys. But listen, I feel for the Met fans. I really do. Yankee fans, you got no respect upstairs for you. Met fans, you got a fan in your owner. He's not going to let you suffer much longer without winning some games. And I don't think he gets rid of Buck. I don't think he thinks that this is Buck's fault.
I agree.
I think this was just he's probably thinking this was a bad batch, bad mixture.
I think you were on it when you didn't think these guys were going to get moved just because of their number. The one thing you were wrong on was the ability of Astros or Rangers to put up that kind of cash, and you didn't know the $22 million was going to get paid by Cohen either.
I was because the owner a few years ago, you recall, after the hurricane, didn't want to give Verlander the extra year.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and now but I honestly think the reason why they got top prospects is because I think they gave up a lot of money in return for Verlander. So remember, next year, if Verlander pitches 140 innings, he vests another $43 million contract. Okay. So the prospects, the fact that the Mets might have put in $35 million just like they just did with Scherzer, that might have sweetened the deal with the